I'm Cass and welcome back to my booktube channel. Today I'm doing my March wrap-up. I read 8 books this month and I'm just going to talk about them. I'm kind of disappointed in the amount of reading I've done this month. I really have been kind of on and off in terms of reading slump and then not a reading slump and then binge reading in like 2 days and then not reading for like 4 days. So my reading's been all over the place, but I did still want to do a little wrap up and just talk about the books that I did read. Starting with Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Mist and Fury. This is the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and it is by far the best book. And I actually listened to this book via the graphic audio version, so it's like the dramatized, is that? Dramatized? Anyways, the dramatic version. Essentially there's a full cast, so each character has their own voice actor, and they are all phenomenally talented and really immerse you into the books. There's also sound effects and music. Some sound effects throw me off where I'm like, I'm a little uncomfy, but I really do love ACOTAR, and I really thought I didn't love it as much as I do, but now that I'm rereading it, I'm like, yes. I'm very excited to finish my reread of Miss Maas's ACOTAR series because they are just phenomenal. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, and I do realize like the problematic issues that people have with this book, and since this is like the second book in a very popular series, I'm gonna move on from talking about it because I love it. 5 stars, best book in the series, moving on. Next we have Iron Widow by Xianxie Zhao. Now this book was for my February book club over on Patreon, and I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did. I gave it a 4.5. It is a very fast-paced, unique, sci-fi, fantasy-esque book. There was a lot more sci-fi elements than I was expecting. I really thought this was a fantasy. It was actually sci-fi. There's like massive mechas that these characters control, and it's giving Battletech. Did anyone play that as a kid? Slash like the Avatar mechs. It's so cool, and I know that the author had recently posted pictures of what the mechas look like, and it was just so fun. Granted, I didn't really connect to any of the characters too deeply in this book. It was very interesting because typically I'm very character driven when it comes to the books that I read, but this book just had me flying through this story, just wanting to know what happened in terms of the plot, which was wild because, like I said, I'm usually a character-based reader to where I really need to connect with the characters to enjoy a story. But the plot of this book had me just absolutely shocked. The ending of this book is so good, and I'm so upset that the second book's release date has been pushed back an entire year, so we won't even get to know what happens in this book until 2024, which is a little unfortunate, but very fast-paced. Action is like always happening. There's some questionable romance in this book. I don't know how I feel about it. Like I said, the characters I didn't really connect to or really care about. It was more of the plot, but super fun read, 4.5, so fast. Like I read this so quickly. Keeping with the same like cover aesthetic, we have The Burning Bridge by John Flanagan. This is the second book in the Ranger's Apprentice series, and this was for my Ranger's Apprentice readathon. If you don't know, I'm hosting a readathon with my friend Rosalie, and we're basically reading one Ranger's Apprentice book every month and hosting a live show with some trivia and live discussions. It's a fun time, and yes, I forgot how much I love this book. There are so many scenes in this book that I didn't realize were some of my favorite scenes in the entire series, and just getting to see the characters again when they're younger is just so heartwarming. That's something really unique about the Ranger's Apprentice series, is because there's so many books, you get to kind of see the characters grow up. And since I reread the series so many times because it's my favorite series, if you don't know, hello. This is my personality trait right here. I love seeing the characters when they're young and inexperienced and just questioning whether or not they're doing the right thing or making the right decisions, and they're just so precious. They're like 16 in this book, and I'm like, little children, but they're so cute, and John Flanagan really knows how to write a good, strong character. All of the characters in this book are so fleshed out and so unique, and they all have their own worries and doubts and troubles, and it's so good. 5 stars. My 10th, 11th, who knows how many reread. I will briefly discuss Chain of Thorns because, if you don't know, this book ended up in like 3 separate reading vlogs. I started it in one, made a huge chunk of progress in another, and then finished it in another. And that's just too many vlogs for this book to be in when it was a 3-star. And my main issue with this book was that there were too many characters with too many plot lines that didn't add anything to the story. It felt like a JLA book where I was like, girl, where's your editor? Where's your editor? Apparently there was an alternate ending to this book, and I wish Cassie Clare went with that, even if it was more devastating. It gave us nothing. I had so many more gripes than positive things in this book. Characters that I used to like, I no longer liked or no longer were there, and it was just depressing that a book that I was so excited to read was just so underwhelming. The stakes felt so low, the villains felt like they weren't really a big threat, and it was just one of Cassie Clare's weaker books for sure. Next we have a cozy little fantasy. I can't remember if I rated this 4.5 or 5 stars. I think I said 5 stars, but probably a 4.5 if we're being completely honest. It was just a fun, cozy fantasy where nothing happened, and I lived for it. I read this in the middle of Chain of Thorns, so you can imagine how much I needed this in my life. Also, the cover art is stunning. My favorite character is Thimble, and I just loved getting to see Viv find a family and follow her dreams and grow her business, and set in a medieval setting. Yes, give it to me. Give it to me all. Give it all to me. Words are failing. I love this fantasy tavern coffee shop situation, and the descriptions were just so nice. It's so funny going and reading the Goodreads reviews because a lot of people hyped up this fantasy because I know this was a popular book over on TikTok, I think, at some point. One of the biggest complaints on Goodreads for the low star ratings, people were like, nothing happened. And I'm just like, yeah, that's the whole point. You're just vibing with these characters. I will say with the characters, they're not super fleshed out. Nothing is really fleshed out in like a massive scale. And I liked it that way because it was just simple, easy to dive into. There's a little bit of magic, there's a little bit of plot, but that wasn't the main situation that was occurring. It was just about a found family, a little bit of romance, and it warmed my heart so much. And this is definitely one of those books that I feel like I will return to if I'm ever in a reading slump and just need something cozy that's fantasy related. It's so cute. This book I actually just finished yesterday. It's actually a bind up of 3 separate volumes of Orange, and Orange was the first manga I ever read. It is a manga I'm super sentimental about, and it is also my favorite manga. So, super duper high praises for Orange, 5 stars. Do check the trigger warnings, please, before you add this to your TBR. It definitely deals with some very sensitive topics, and I just want to give a little heads up for everyone there. But this book, do not read it in public. Do not read it in public. I have read this book and reread it many times, and still, I thought book 1 I was going to be okay reading it out at a coffee shop, and I was sitting there next to my best friend, holding back tears the entire time, trying not to become an embarrassment and lose my dignity. But you know, what is dignity anyways? I don't think I have that. I love the characters in this book so much, and I love their friendship dynamic. It involves like a little bit of time travel, but not actual like time travel. Essentially, characters from the future send letters to their past selves back when they're in high school to try to erase some of their regrets in terms of what happens to some of their friends. I cannot rave about this manga enough. Please do yourself a favor, read this manga. It's my favorite. I love it so much, and I can't wait to read the second collection very, very soon here. I just need to be in a mood to cry. So preferably like not when I'm about to go to work and not when I'm out in public. So there's 7 volumes in this series. There's 2 bind-ups and then a 3rd book that's called Future, and it deals with the characters later after high school. My favorite manga. That's all I gotta say. Then we have Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This was my very first Brandon Sanderson book, and I actually rated it a 4.5. I was very, very impressed with Brandon Sanderson's writing, which should be no surprise because he's won a bunch of awards and has written so many books. And apparently the books just get better from here. And this is Warbreaker. I don't know if I mentioned the title of this book, but this was for my March Wyverns and Words book club that I run with Katie, and we had a fabulous discussion. So if you read this book and you want to hear my more in-depth thoughts with Katie, I have a playlist called Wyverns and Words, and it is in there, and we have a fun little discussion about this book. I thought the magic system was so creative, and as someone who is an artist, getting to read about a magic system that involves color was so fascinating and just was so fun. I really didn't connect deeply to any of the characters. There were character perspectives that I definitely enjoyed. There were a few POVs, in this book, which was fun, but I never minded any of the POVs, which was shockingly rare, especially since Chain of Thorns annoyed me so much with the multiple POVs. This book did it right to where every POV was adding something to the story. Everything came together in the end in a logical, reasonable way. They all just had their own growth and development, and we got to learn more about the characters, and it was so good. And there's a talking sword, and I love it so much, and I want more. The magic system isn't that complex to get into, which is really nice for a high fantasy book. And in case you're worried, there is a detailed explanation of the magic system 500 pages in of the 650 page book. So if you're confused, just wait until page 508. Then everything will click together. I don't want to talk too much longer on this book just because, like I said, I have an entire live show discussion and I talk about it in depth in one of my reading vlogs as well. So 4.5, can't wait to pick up more Brandon Sanderson books. This really got me in the mood for it. Then my 8th and final book is actually Calvin and Hobbes by Bill Watterson. This is so, it's a comic book. It is a comic book. It's a collection of, I don't know if it's like a collection. What is this called? I don't know how to describe this book, if it's a comic book or it's a collection of comic panels, because I feel like these were originally posted in like newspapers and stuff as individual panels, and there are a few like longer ones, but Calvin and Hobbes is actually something that my dad introduced to me, and he gifted me this book on my birthday like so many years ago, like at least 10 years ago, I'm thinking, and I love Calvin and Hobbes. I love their comics. This is my favorite one that I own. I don't know what it is, but it's this one with this on the cover. And I distinctly remember I used to pronounce it Calvin and Hobbes for some reason, but it's just a fun comic story situation about Calvin, who's just a bratty little 6-year-old who's just such a menace to society and everyone around him, and his pet tiger, aka stuffed animal tiger Hobbes. I had a bit of a rough patch in my personal life, and I just decided to dig this out of my closet because I was scrolling through Facebook and one of the comics popped up and I was like, oh my gosh, that is in my closet. I need to reread this. And yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. Literally so sweet. Just a fun collection of stories. I love it so much. And the nostalgia has me with this book as well. So these are all the books that I read in the course of March. Also, the top book is falling off because it's clearly a much bigger size. I feel like I had a good variety of reading done this month. I read some comics, manga, I had some sci-fi, some high fantasy, some rereads, and yeah, it wasn't my best reading month. I was a little disappointed that I wasn't able to read more this month, but you know, life happens. I, also run a business. My Etsy shop is linked below in case you're curious about what I sell. If you like bookish maps, is that me promoting my shop? I guess that's me promoting my shop. And yeah, I just had a lot going on in my life, so I didn't read as much as I wanted to, but hopefully April will be better. And honestly, this is still a really good reading month, and I do realize that I do read very quickly, and I do have some time to carve out for reading, especially since I film reading vlogs. So even if you read one book, let me know what it was, let me know what y'all have been reading, your favorite book, least favorite book, whatever you want to tell me, please do let me know, and I really hope to see you in the next one. Toodles!